This is the Masai Mara in Kenya, one of the best places on earth for watching wildlife. But in this series, we're going to be looking at it in an entirely new way. Over the next 6 weeks, we're going to be following in intimate detail the lives of Africa's big cats, sending back a diary of their hardships and good fortunes as they happen.
We'll be focusing on a few individual cats in particular, a female leopard and her cub, two families of cheetah, one with quite old cubs, and another with very young offspring.
This group of lions, which tend to spend most of their time in the marsh here, and another lion pride, which lives just a few kilometres away.
The big pride is aptly named, with 7 adult females, 4 males, and an incredible 17 cubs. With the care of so many adults, the future for these lion cubs looks bright. They even get to suckle from any female in the group with enough milk.
No one knows what's going to occur with any of these cats over the next few weeks, but it's fair to assume there'll be moments of fun, grief, and a great deal of fireworks. And to help me cover these events as they happen, I'm joined by Jonathan Scott.
To have any chance at all of following the big cats on a daily basis, we have to be up at dawn. And this is what it's like back at base camp. We've got 6 camera crews, but perhaps more importantly, we've also got a number of people out there simply as spotters. They'll be using their binoculars to try and pick up the big cats before they lie down and sleep for the day. Now, we're covering an area of about 300 square kilometres, so it's going to be a little bit like looking for a needle in a haystack. And I'd better get going.
We've assigned a camera team exclusively to each of the big cats, and well before sunrise the whole operation fans out across the Mara, linked by radio.
Can you go up to the cheetah with some more cubs? Jonathan, keeping up with Gavin and trying to find the leopard. Okay, keep them all ready on my way up to Victory Ridge.
The variety of habitats and abundance of prey makes the Mara the best place in the world to see big cats. Finding lions and cheetahs is relatively simple, but tracking down a leopard is quite another matter. So it was unbelievably lucky that on our very first day of filming, while exploring one of my favourite haunts, I chanced upon an old friend. Leopards shun the open spaces, seeking the cover of long grass or thick bush, relying on their natural camouflage to remain hidden. Sometimes I've gone weeks, even months, between sightings. But this is no ordinary leopard. She's far tamer than any other I've known. And what's more, she has a cub. This is Halftail, a leopard that first appeared in this area about 6 or 7 years ago. I would think she's about 9 years old now, and she's accompanied by a 6 to 7 month old cub, a little female. As you can see, the cubs just as relaxed as their mother around vehicles. It's because the animals are so relaxed around vehicles in the Mara that we chose this location for Big Cat Diary. Halftail has produced 4 litters of cubs, but has only managed to raise 2 of them. This female cub was one of a litter of 2, but her brother disappeared when they were only a few weeks old. The cub still enjoys the comfort of suckling from her mother, but she's been eating meat since she was about a month old. Leopards mainly hunt at night, but to satisfy her cub's need for meat, Halftail must also hunt during the daytime. We've been so fortunate to find Halftail and her cub, and to get pictures like this. But they could vanish again tomorrow. And what's more, there's no guarantee that the little female will survive over the next few weeks. It's a long and dangerous path to independence.
This is one of the 2 families of cheetah that we shall be trying to follow over the next 6 weeks.
is made up of 3 individuals and an adult female that's sitting up on top of the mound. We've called her Fundi, which means craftsman in Swahili, and her 2 10-month-old cubs, which are quite easy to distinguish by virtue of a ridge of fluffy hair along the backs of their necks. I've been following these cats for the past few days, and already their individual characters are starting to shine through. The little female is quite timid, but she will follow her brother whenever he goes off in search of trouble, and he seems to do that rather a lot.
Fundi's cubs, though almost as big as her, are still incredibly playful. During the cooler parts of the day, they've been chasing and play fighting, but these games, far from being a waste of time, are essential if they're to develop the hunting skills their mother already possesses. Sometimes, though, chasing each other just hasn't been good enough, and during the week, if any other creatures have come within firing range, they've come in for a lot of stick. A bat-eared fox isn't a common item on cheetah menus, but it certainly does for target practice. The truth is that cheetahs can easily outrun the fox and are more interested in the chase than a meal. The next day, the male cubs started trouble with an altogether more confusing character. An aardwolf. Aardwolves are a type of small hyena which eat termites, but despite having tiny teeth, they do a very good line in bluff. It was enough to convince the female cub that a little respect was due. After a while, it turned into a bit of a staring match. The most extraordinary part of this encounter is that aardwolves are only usually active at night, and you very rarely see them, let alone see them being chased by a cheetah. And a couple of days later, the cubs finally met their match. No matter how brave or fierce you are, you don't mess with an elephant. In fact, Fundi and her cubs were quietly minding their own business when this elephant herd moved in, and though cheetahs are no threat to these great animals, the cats were persuaded to leave in no uncertain terms. Though we've been incredibly lucky in the past week to witness such a variety of events, the truth is that cheetahs spend most of their time doing absolutely nothing. But this isn't simply laziness. Conserving energy between meals is as important as hunting, especially for Fundi. She's still the sole provider for her 2 cubs, which, despite their size and speed, won't be able to kill efficiently for themselves for another 5 months or so. In the meantime, they depend on their mother's superb ability as a hunter. This is one of 4 hunting attempts made by Fundi during the course of the week. Even from my position on top of the vehicle, I could barely see her as she stalked through the trees to the right of the Impala. The 2 cubs join in the chase, and just as I begin to lose them behind the trees, one of our other camera cars moves into a clearing, and Richard manages to record the end. Fundi swiftly suffocates the prey whilst her cubs help pull it down. And with the cheetah now feeding, I can move in closer. They've just managed to kill on the very last night an adult female impala. From my point of view with the camera, it was a little bit unfortunate. It all occurred behind very thick cover. But this is a problem too for the cheetahs. When they make a kill in this sort of habitat, they are very likely to lose part, if not all of it, to another predator. They can't see a lion or a hyena coming, and as a result they're going to have to eat as quickly as they can, get as much in their stomachs as possible in a shorter space of time.
And sure enough, that night they did indeed lose most of this kill to hyenas. As soon as these events are recorded, the tapes are rushed back to camp for editing. At this stage, nobody knows what will be in next week's show.
I'm sure that most people expect that in Africa it's always lovely blue skies and hot weather, but in fact during the last week it's been absolutely bucketing down, and it's made it very difficult for our film crews just simply getting around. But without the rain, this kind of area wouldn't support the amazing wildlife that it does.
Every day this week, storm clouds have gathered in the afternoon, and then the skies have opened. Soon our cats were looking decidedly bedraggled. Even though it looks miserable for them, the rains do have their advantages. The cooler conditions are good for hunting, and the fresh grass attracts more prey to the area. But one day last week, it just never stopped raining, and one of the dry stream beds cutting across Halftail's territory was quickly transformed into a raging torrent. The cub seemed fascinated by the water, and at one point was on the verge of being swept downstream. Having coped with this, she was almost immediately in trouble again. The cats seemed almost to be enjoying themselves, but we'd been desperately hoping for drier weather, because working conditions are getting increasingly difficult. Trying to film in the rain and keep all our equipment dry has been a nightmare, and our vehicles are getting stuck over and over again. At one stage, 4 vehicles were all bogged down while trying to pull each other out of the same quagmire.
This is the Masai Mara in Kenya, one of the best places on earth for watching wildlife. But in this series, we're going to be looking at it in an entirely new way. Over the next 6 weeks, we're going to be following in intimate detail the lives of Africa's big cats, sending back a diary of their hardships and good fortunes as they happen.
We'll be focusing on a few individual cats in particular, a female leopard and her cub, 2 families of cheetah, one with quite old cubs, and another with very young offspring.
This group of lions, which tend to spend most of their time in the marsh here, and another lion pride, which lives just a few kilometres away.
The Big Pride is aptly named, with 7 adult females, 4 males, and an incredible 17 cubs. With the care of so many adults, the future for these lion cubs looks bright. They even get to suckle from any female in the group with enough milk.
No one knows what's going to occur with any of these cats over the next few weeks, but it's fair to assume there'll be moments of fun, grief, and a great deal of fireworks. And to help me cover these events as they happen, I'm joined by Jonathan Scott.
To have any chance at all of following the big cats on a daily basis, we have to be up at dawn. And this is what it's like back at base camp. We've got 6 camera crews, but perhaps more importantly, we've also got a number of people out there simply as spotters. They'll be using their binoculars to try and pick up the big cats before they lie down and sleep for the day. Now we're covering an area of about 300 square kilometres, so it's going to be a little bit like looking for a needle in a haystack. And I'd better get going.
We've assigned a camera team exclusively to each of the big cats, and well before sunrise the whole operation fans out across the Mara, linked by radio.
Can we go up to the keeper with some more cubs? Jonathan, keeping up with Gavin and trying to find the leopard. Okay, keep them already on my way up to Victory Ridge.
The variety of habitats and abundance of prey makes the Mara the best place in the world to see big cats. Finding lions and cheetahs is relatively simple, but tracking down a leopard is quite another matter.